afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our webinar. We are really honored today to welcome Professor Amaney Jamal. It's really a pleasure to have you with us, Professor. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Professor Amaney Jamal is a Dean of the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. She is also the Edward Sanford Professor of Politics and a Professor of Politics and International Affairs at Princeton. She directs the workshop on Arab political development and the Bobst-American University of Beirut collaborative initiative. Dr. Jamal's scholarship covers the Middle East and North Africa, mass and political behavior, political development and democratization, inequality and economic segregation, Muslim immigration, gender, race, religion, and class. Her book, Barriers to Democracy, won the 2008 American Political Science Best Book Award in the Comparative Democratization section. She is an author, editor of 3 other books and several peer-reviewed articles and book chapters. Dr. Jamal earned her PhD from the University of Michigan and a bachelor from the University of California, Los Angeles. She was named a Carnegie Scholar in 2006 and elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2020. Wow, Professor, mashallah, this is really a very high profile, and we are really honored to have you with us.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. It's a real honor to be with all of you here today. I have followed your careers, and I'm always in awe of all the great accomplishments and the many contributions you've also made. So I'm in good company. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm very excited to be here today. So,
okay, Dr. Amaney, before I give you the floor to share your presentation, I'll just say a few words about this webinar and what it means and where do we stand, and it's part of its concept. So it's a 3rd-year platform that started with the University of Manchester in 2022. This year is the first year of our collaboration with the University of Sharjah under the title of Women Empowering Muslim Women in actually all scientific research. We used to specify art, humanities, and so on, but now we have, as we expanded, we have more science scholars with us and medical scholars. So we expanded it to this platform, and it's a series where we envisage it as a platform to debate among academics, students, public actors with the interest in the broader theme of women and gender in the MENA or West Asia, North Africa area. We are, our committee is led by Professor Zahia Salhi, who is the Dean of the Humanities and Social Sciences at the University of Sharjah, and myself. There are also Dr. Ikram Binani from Manchester, Manar Abu Talib, Noura Al-Karbi, Bashair, Musa, honoring their titles, of course, from Sharjah University, with Bayan in charge of the admin stuff. So we are looking forward to expand also our platform to all the world in discussing our topics in a different way, in a way that is more interactive and more profound, without any to counter any stereotypical attitudes or perspectives. So the floor is yours now, Professor Amaney. If you could just share your presentation on the button, and you have from 35 to 40 minutes.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Hatun, for that introduction as well. And it's a real honor to be part of the series. Um, and I hope what I have to say will contribute to our understanding of some of the challenges women face in the region as it relates to employment trends moving forward. So just a word on the data that we're using here today. As you know, I'm the co-principal investigator of the Arab Barometer project. And I'm going to be very brief. The Arab Barometer is one of the leading and most influential research networks on public opinion in the Middle East and North Africa. It was founded in 2006. It's the Middle East and North Africa's longest standing nonprofit and nonpartisan research network hosted at Princeton University and the University of Michigan. We provide rigorous and reliable data on public attitudes towards crucial issues across the region. We empower citizens, amplifying their voices in public discourse, and our publicly accessible data and reports provided at no cost serve to facilitate data-driven solutions for addressing the pressing issues facing ordinary citizens across the Middle East and North Africa, fostering informed conversations and actionable outcomes. So our mission is to track attitudes and behavior across the region. Second is to build institutional capacity because we work with many partners across the region. We have worked to ensure that our colleagues across the region are also developing the skills to conduct this research in their own societies. And we disseminate knowledge about citizens living in the Middle East and North Africa. So for the Arab Barometer Wave 8, which is basically what I'm going to be presenting today, we conducted 7 nationally representative surveys of citizens ages 18 and above. We conducted more than 13,000 personal interviews. All of our interviews are face-to-face, and they take place in a respondent's home. And we have a complex survey design stratified by governor and urbanity. If anybody has questions about sampling, I'll come back to that in the Q&A. And we fielded our surveys from September 2023 to April 2024. And of course, we work with our local partners. So some of the key findings in Wave 8 as it relates to women and gender, what we find is that over the last decade, especially, pro-gender equality views have declined across the region. Many women with past work experience want to return to work, but women face more barriers to workforce entry than men, and that persists. Affordability is generally seen as the biggest obstacle to childcare, and because women are charged mostly with childcare responsibilities, they can't access the labor force because of the cost of childcare and affordability. Both men and women with working female relatives are more supportive of gender equality than those who are not. So what we're seeing not only is, women's entry in the workforce really important for female empowerment generally, but what we see is that in families where women are working, men have also better attitudes about gender equality. And in some cases, having working female relatives has a greater impact on women's view on gender equality than if women have jobs themselves. So like having a mother or a sister also with work experience helps influence women's also attitudes about the workforce. So just to give a general sort of overview about employment patterns in the region, just looking at 4 countries here, what we see generally, other than Kuwait, and we also know that, in Kuwait, many women work in the public sector. So it's not really representative of what's happening in the region, but across the region, women are still very, are lacking representation in the employment sector. So in Jordan, 12% are employed, 3% are self-employed, and the vast majority are housewives. Not to denigrate housewives, it's a very important role. We believe that, but nevertheless, in terms of thinking about the percent of women in the workforce here, we're tracking about 15%. Kuwait, of course, is 55%. When you think about self-employed as well, it's closer to like 72%, which is great, but it's public sector employment. Not all Arab countries have these employment patterns. Morocco, we're looking at about 18%. Tunisia, we're looking at 21%. So still, the Middle East and North Africa remains one of the regions that has the fewest women in the labor force. Past and future employment, basically here we just wanted to say that the percent of women saying they have held a job in the past. In Tunisia, about 58% of women said they have held a job. But if we look at the percent of women today in the labor force, it's 21. So this basically indicates that the labor force patterns in Tunisia for women are going on a downwards trend. Morocco, about 39% say they have held a job. Lebanon 28%, Jordan 26%, Palestine 18%, Mauritania 18%, Kuwait 7%. So like going back here, you see here that more women are working now in Kuwait. In every other country, fewer women are working than what in terms of the past. Future employment, the percent of women saying they'd like to go back to work. Some people say like women don't want to go back to work. Our data does not support that. 65% of women in Tunisia say they want to work. 62% of Jordanian women want to work. 50% of Moroccans and 50% of Lebanese. This is just to illustrate the issue about intention versus availability. And I'll just skip here. So some of the top barriers to workforce entry, when we ask people, well, both men and women, so we have women here and men here, what are the most challenging barriers to entry into the workforce? So first one, of course, for women in Jordan is lack of availability of jobs. But the second one is lack of childcare options, right? And you see this in Jordan, you see this in Tunisia. This is a big factor. Kuwait, it's not a big factor because, again, Kuwait has very sort of generous childcare, also available resources. But then some of the other factors that also influence female employment are lack of flexible hours in the workplace. That was a concern in Kuwait. Low wages remains a problem, especially in Jordan and Morocco and Tunisia. So in our qualitative interviews with women, they sort of say like, if I'm gonna get a job, it's gonna pay, let's say, $300 a month. Daycare is $200. Transportation is $150. It's gonna I have to pay to work. So again, this whole affordability bundle with childcare and other needs is not very conducive. And when we ask men what are the most challenging barriers into the workplace, most of them will say lack of available jobs across the board. And so women are juggling a few other concerns like childcare. Men are just thinking about the availability of jobs. So, and again, this is just here to show that the difference between men and women who are saying childcare is a challenge. You'll see in every Arab country, women are worried about childcare more than men because that's just how it works. And I just have this other graph just briefly, not to spend too much time on it because I don't want to overwhelm everybody with the data, but I just wanted to show this, like also when we think about food insecurity in the region, we have a question on the Arab Barometer that basically asks people, did you or your family run out of enough food this month to feed your family? And the percent of people who said yes, among the percent of people who said yes, what we see systematically for women is that if they have a job, they're less likely to say that they faced insecurity. If they don't have a job in every single country, they're slightly more likely to say they faced insecurity. So again, for women who have a job, it gives them a sense of financial security, and they have lower scores on food insecurity. Just briefly to talk about sort of the network or the ecosystem of employment for women. When we ask women if anybody in their family has held a job, you'll see that in Jordan, about 59% will say none of my family has worked. In Kuwait, most people in Kuwait will say that their sister, their mother, their cousin has worked. In Morocco, 51% say nobody in their family has worked. Women in their family has worked. And in Tunisia, 42% say there aren't women in their family that work. So again, these are big numbers in Tunisia, Morocco, and Jordan. So thinking about, young women looking up or around them and seeing role models and then opportunities to sort of break the ceiling and do something else, we still see that there's a good percentage of women in the region who also have not worked or within the family network have not worked. And so working female relative, the percent saying they have at least one female relative who has worked. Again, the largest percentage is in Kuwait. So in Kuwait, we're seeing a very high percentage of women who work, but that I believe is because of the public sector opportunities that are conducive to female employment. Lebanon says 60% of Lebanese say they have a female relative has worked. 57% of Tunisians say they have a female relative that's worked, and Morocco and so forth. Palestine has the lowest level of females that work, but that you have to sort of take into account the occupation and the barriers to travel to employment sites and whatnot. So again, this is just to give more of a descriptive account. I'm just going to go now and look at now, what does this mean for views across the last decade? So we have a question on the Arab Barometer that we've asked now for over close to 18 years. We started asking it in 2006, 2007. We asked it in 2010. We asked it in 2023, 23 and 24. We asked men and women should have equal opportunities to work, equal work opportunities. Do you agree or disagree? So in 2006, 75% of Moroccans agreed and 65% of Jordanians agreed. In 2010, 2011, after the Arab Spring, we were not able to ask this question in Tunisia in this time period, but we were able to ask it in 2010, 2011. 81% of Tunisians agreed that women should have men and women should have equal work opportunities. What's surprising is from 2010 to 2024, last 15 years, it moved up slightly in Tunisia. Tunisia is pretty high. But what's surprising for us is that in a place like Morocco, which had the Madawana, it went down from 75% to 64%. That's not inconsequential. That's almost a decline of 10 percentage points across almost a 20-year period. So it means today that the society today in Morocco is more conservative about equal work opportunities for men and women than they were 20 years ago. And in Jordan, it hasn't moved. There's been no improvement. It stayed the same. So over 20 years, only 65% believe men and women should have equal work opportunities. So again, the political culture, if you may, or at least the attitudes that exist, coupled with the fact that in many countries we saw women don't have female relatives that work, and the job opportunities are scarce, wages are down, childcare expenses are up. You'll see that there's no really support there. If we think about the impetus of change, it's certainly not going to, it doesn't appear to be coming from the attitudinal shifts, because they're becoming more conservative. When we look at other questions on equal, men and women should have equal work opportunities, this is to break it down by female and male. So you'll see that in general, women across the board are more supportive of women and men having equal opportunities. So in Jordan, it's 76%. It just declined 1% over the last 18 years, but that's within the margin. But again, Morocco is surprising. Morocco, after the Madawana, 85% of women believe that they should have equal work opportunities. Today, that number is 74%. That's a decline of 11% among women. Tunisia, it stayed the same for women, 90% from 2010 to 24, and it's gone up for men. Men, it went from 72 to 77, which is good. It means that men are becoming more open to women working. But look, men in Morocco are less supportive of women working, and in Jordanian, men are stagnant on this. Only 1 in 2 men believe women and men should have equal work opportunities. So this sort of looks at whether or not you have a female relative that works, and does that mediate your attitude on this? I can come back to this because I want to show some other slides, because I know I have a lot to show. I want to look at family views at home, views on family responsibilities. So we have a question on the Arab Barometer that says, a man should have final say in all decisions concerning the family. But in other words, a very sort of like, if I may say, a patriarchal, men make the final word and not necessarily women. And you'll see that there's some support for the statement across the region. In Jordan, about 60% in 2024 across men and women support this statement. So that's a majority. In Kuwait, a majority support this. But if you see in Kuwait, it was 62% in 2018. That now is only 53%. So across time, fewer people believe that that statement is correct. In Morocco, what we saw that it started out at 58% in 2016. It went down 12 percentage points and went back up, and now it's higher today. More people in Morocco believe in this statement than they did almost 18 years ago. And in Tunisia, it's gone down slightly to 5%. Now, when we look at, again, we break it down by women and men. Women are men are more likely to support this statement. So across time in Jordan, more men today support this statement than they did almost 18 years ago, 71% versus 66. And women in Jordan, 49 to 48. See, again, we had some improvements around the Arab Spring, and then now things are in a more conservative equilibrium. More women, they mirror what women 20 years ago on this statement. In Kuwait, we see a declining pattern. Fewer men believe in this statement, fewer women. Only 35% of women believe in this statement in Kuwait. So we talked about public sector employment, how high it was. And so maybe there is a correlation between that a large percentage of women who work and their support for the statement. In Morocco, among men, 65% 18 years ago. Today, 70% of men believe that they have the final statement, and women, it's gone up. In Tunisia, it's sort of gone up slightly for men, but fewer women today believe in that statement. And here we track it around like female relatives who work, just to give you an idea. What we're trying to see is that, well, if you have a network where your female relatives have worked, are people more likely to support the statement? What we see, I'll draw your attention here. So if you have no female relatives who have worked, in each of the cases, there's more support for the statement. And where you have female relatives who work, it's less support for the statement. So again, this correlation between employment and attitudes towards women's rights or gender equality in the household, they seem to track well with each other. I'm going to move forward to talk about views of gender in politics. We have, again, a question that says, in general, men are better at political leadership than women. And here what we see is that the majority of Jordanians have constantly believed this statement across almost our 7 surveys in the last 18 years. 78% started saying this in 2006, and today 74% say it. So we haven't seen much improvement in Jordan. In Morocco, 54% said this in 2006. Again, we saw a decline. Around 2018, only 35% of Moroccans supported this statement. Today, this support is back to 57%. Still lower than Jordan, but nevertheless, Morocco was considered the poster child of women's empowerment with the Medawana. So to see that it started at a higher place, and since then, we're seeing this this equilibrium that is reverting is really, I think, interesting and worthy of additional sort of analysis. In Kuwait, for political leadership, remember, Kuwait started out in the early 2000s with a female quota for parliament. So there you had, in general, men are better at political leadership than women. 59% supported it. Today, 74% support that. So despite more women in the employment sector, more women not believing that men should have the final word in the household, the society has become much more patriarchal about who should be in leadership. And this is after the female quota. And in Tunisia, you see that across time, this has been on the decline. So fewer people today in Tunisia believe in this statement. It's gone down about 20 percentage points. So at least in Tunisia, we're seeing something that it's interesting to if we're going to look at the variation across the region and try to understand, why in some societies we're seeing changes and others we don't. This would be really profound. Um, and just breaking this down by gender, what we see is that, of course, men are more conservative on this question. Men are better at political leadership than women. In Jordan, 80% of men versus 67% of women. In Morocco, 68% of men versus 46% of women. In Kuwait, 84% of men versus 64% of women. And in Tunisia, 61 versus 23. So almost in every society, there's almost close to a 20 percentage point difference between men and women on this question. And again, just to let you know, for men who are answering this question here, what we see that if they have a female relative who's working, they're more supportive of the women's rights. So again, this idea of having the women in the labor force has, I think, these psychological effects on support for women's equality that bodes well. And that basically summarize. That's basically my presentation, and I look forward to the questions. I can go back and talk about some of the slides in more detail, but I do look forward to your questions. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and then I'm happy to put the slides back up.
Thank you very much, Professor Amaney, for sharing your data with us and all these findings that are really, really interesting. It's so important to see how these figures are fluctuating and how some milestones that we think might be pushing these figures up, you will see that they are not. They are doing the opposite. And how, for example, I mean, the pattern of Tunisia is very interesting. A country that was leading in the beginning of in the mid 20th century is now like going the other way, the other direction. Exactly. Yeah, it's really interesting to see these findings. Thank you so much. We open the floor for questions. Anybody has questions? I think also
use the raise hand. Yeah, okay. So RF, Rafali,
and then DM.
Introduce yourself, Fatim Zahran. Yeah, if you could introduce yourself and go ahead.
Okay. Do you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you though.
Okay, great. I'm just switching
Hi.
on. Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Amaney. I just wanted to say that we met in Jordan for the APSA conference and Beirut for the MUs. Yes. So it's such a pleasure seeing you today. And
I'm so happy to see you.
Me too. So back then I was in my final year in PhD and now I got it. Thanks God.
Mabruk, mabruk.
Barakallahu feek. So it's on the same subject, gender issues in the MENA region. So I was really captivated by all the findings and the work you did and shared with us today. So talking about Morocco, since I'm living in Morocco, recently, you know, we've been talking about the reform, the second reform of the family law, which is under, study by a council appointed by His Majesty the King Mohammed VI. As you have seen with your data, there is this fluctuation in position of Moroccans. Just like in the first case back in 2004, people were not really positive about those changes in the Mudawana. There is a lot of rumors and they are a little bit afraid that women would be taking on men's positions. So there is always this, I would call it propaganda going on. Right. And it's up to civil society, professors, and these discussions on media to enlighten people about what's really going on. So when you mentioned, for example, that women's political leadership in Morocco, there has been quotas in the government, which is a very good thing. But despite that, you see, so some people would say, yes, we are in for that, and others would say, no, it's a male's domain. And we see that women, on the other hand, they are doing very well in politics. when they take it seriously, not just in politics, in any domain. So we will be in for women, but it's a true facts. Working with women, I would say that women take things seriously. They want to fight all those stereotypes and barriers, and they end up killing themselves at work, which is not a good thing for the family. Anyways, so my understanding and my interpretation of your data is the following.
Yes.
I would say there is a discrepancy between the public discourse and the ordinary, the layman. So people, they do not really know what's going on. This is number one. The second thing, as I told you, the role of the academia, of the civil society, of the professors, university professors, and so on. They have this role in society to enlighten people about what's really going on. And the last thing, which is also very important, is to reach out to people through campaigning and through also municipalities that are working locally, so we can go nationally and locally to achieve more results. Thank you so much for all your findings.
Thank you. Can I respond? Oh, please.
No, Dr. Amaney, can we take about 2 or 3 and then, there's another question by DM. Is that Dalia? Shukran, Rafali. Thank you.
Rafali, thank you.
DM?
Yes, that's me.
It's Dalia.
Hello, and thank you very much, Dr. Amaney, for this illuminating presentation. I just wonder if within the informal sector, the informal economic sector in the MENA region in general, would you say that possibly it's easier for women to access the informal sector, maybe because there is more independence, especially for single heads of households, single female heads of households. Maybe there is more variety. It's not controlled by laws and regulations as much as in the formal sector. So I just wanted to gauge your view on this. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dalia. Over to you, Dr. Amaney.
Thank you so much, Dalia and Rafali, for those wonderful questions. Let me start with Rafali. I mean, this is kind of like, as a political scientist who cares about gender, where I spend a lot of time thinking about, okay, what is going on here? And for the longest time, I mean, there's a couple of things, like theoretically, when we think about our theoretical priors, what we believe will lead to more empowerment of women and more women accessing the job market and some of these positive externalities that come with it. There's different models. Like one model is that it has to be organic. The society itself has to begin to see women as equals. And when our society see women as equals, they will create the necessary conditions, whether it's in employment, in education, in the household, to ensure women have equal rights. And I know there's, we can break down what equal rights, but what we're talking about is dignifying women in all segments of society, right? So that this has to come from how your children are raised, how your men are raised, how your boys are raised, how your women are raised, to believe that each should be dignified in moving forward. So that's one argument, that it comes organically. Another argument is, no, if you look at the way most states and countries historically have improved the status of women, right? And I often say this, I teach at a university, Princeton University. 50 years ago at Princeton University, there were no women at Princeton University. Somebody in the leadership said women need to come into the university. It wasn't that there was a public opinion survey and men voted, changed their opinions about women. When women came to Princeton, when women were given the right to vote in many countries, there was a lot of opposition against it, but still women persisted and they voted, going back to Rafali. So when you had the Madawana in Morocco, when you have the quotas, these are designed, these institutional interventions are designed to put women in positions so that through, like Rafali pointed out, where they're working twice as hard as everybody else, to say, look, women are competent and capable, right? So that's the second one. So it's top down versus bottom up, right? So, so Rafali, going back to your question, depending on what we think is the right prescription, right, is going to shape how we think about Morocco. So if you look at Morocco today, you had institutional intervention with the Medawana, with the quotas, and now you have a backlash. In my opinion, what we're seeing is some sort of backlash. Now, some people will say that because the economic environment is not good, when you have economic challenges, it always pushes societies to be more conservative. I'd like to explore that hypothesis more, because across the Arab world, what we've seen, especially since the Arab Spring, and unemployment is up, the youth bulge has fewer opportunities. When we look at this data, which I have not showed you, our youth are just as conservative as their grandparents. And so we need to, so in these other countries where you had institutional interventions and things evolved, remember, if it was like, not to say that, you know, we want to see war, God forbid, but in World War II, the United States needed more and more women to enter the labor force. And once they entered the labor force, they said, we're not going back home. So again, there has to be some economic movement in these societies. I've become more convinced, sort of, Fali, yes, civil society, you need the right people to message. The problem in places like Morocco and elsewhere is a lot of the civil society activity still happens in the urban centers and not in the rural areas. If you look at, when we break down Morocco, you'll see that you still have a huge literacy problem gap, especially among women in the rural sectors. So I don't know how much civil society activity is happening there. So we have to make sure that these initiatives are being shared with all the societies, despite, you know, sort of socioeconomic standing across different settings. But I'm becoming much more sort of basic about the fact that when you have economic growth generally across the region, it bodes well for men and women. And because of the last 20 years also, the region has seen so much war, so much turmoil, so much instability. All of this is not conducive to opportunities for our youth to access good positions and sort of see some of these changes. So yes, civil society is important. Yes, institutional intervention is important. Yes, working on attitudes. But I think also, and why do I say this really quickly? I know I can go on and on. Because as Tunisia was democratizing and became sort of our poster child of democracy story, I would be in meetings with many people, and people would say, oh, let's look at attitudes towards gender. Let's look at youth attitudes towards moderation and whatnot. And I kept saying, you know, in some of these meetings, I'm really worried about Tunisia reverting because of this one statistics. The average family was on a per capita wealth measure, the average family was doing better under Ben Ali than they were doing under all the successive democratic governments. By 10 years after the Arab Spring, the average family was far worse than they were under Ben Ali. And under Ben Ali, it's not like they were doing great. So I'm really worried that these economic conditions are going to push societies to become more conservative and revert. So that's just trying to bring this all together. But the civil society point, Rafali, is indeed important. The educational part is important. The informal sector, Dalia, really quickly, is a huge sector that absorbs a good segment of female employment in the region, especially in places like Jordan and Egypt, in the non-oil countries, especially. It gives them more flexibility, you know, access to jobs. I do want to say in our data, when we ask women if they work, we ask if they work in the informal or the formal. So these numbers that you saw encompass both. My worry about informal sector employment, but I think any employment is better than no employment. Let me just say that. But in the informal sector, because more women are in the informal sector, because it's cheaper for employers, more flexible hours, but it also creates opportunities where women can be exploited and taken advantage of because they're not protected formally. So I think it's important that there's the informal sector, but I do think we need to keep our eye, because you don't want the backlash of women saying, "Oh, I worked; it was a horrible experience. Why should my daughter work and be humiliated? Why should my daughter work and be disgraced?" So we have to just keep our eye on those things.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Amaney.
you. Yes,
we have
you're
we
right.
have Dr. Ayat, and then Dr. Hatoun.
Thank you so much, Professor Zahia. Thank you
Can
so
you
much, the
can you put the
organizers.
volume up? We can't hear you well.
Yes, now? Is
Thank
it
you so
better
much.
now?
Yes,
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 thank you.
yes.
Thank you, Professor Zahia and the organizers. It's a pleasure to have Professor Amaney again. We met in Tunisia and then in Kuwait, and now I'm glad to see you here online with Sharjah. We would love to have you in person.
Inshallah,
Next time.
inshallah, inshallah. Yeah.
Thank you. I was looking to actually to the interpretation of the data in Jordan, and
Yes.
it's not really surprising because if we look to the numbers, we know that only 13% of women are enrolled in the labor market, while a huge number of women graduate from the universities, but this is not reflected in the labor market. So this is the first issue. And luckily, we have also a dear friend, Jennifer Olmsted. She is in women economics. She can maybe elaborate on that. So this is when it comes to Jordan. When it comes to United Arab Emirates, I think with these great efforts from the Faculty of Arts, Professor Zahia, we need to see also such figures from the United Arab Emirates. So it's an invitation of collaboration, if you don't mind. Maybe it can come as an initiative from the sociology department. We are more than happy to welcome.
You are well placed, Dr.
I'm very
Ayat.
interested when I saw some data from Kuwait to see the differences with the fact that more than, I believe the number, maybe Noura can correct me, more than 45% of Emirati women are in the labor market.
MashaAllah.
So that means maybe we can see different, insight and different interpretation, and this can really shed some light on this issue. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Ayat. I think your point is so interesting and important, especially because the UAE's trajectory in comparison to the countries that Professor Amaney has studied is different. Because, I mean, it's a shorter, UAE women have entered the labor market very recently in comparison to all these countries studied here. So, Professor Amaney, I think we need to entice you to pay attention to us here and invite you for collaboration.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. دكتورة هاتون تفضلي. هاتون?
You're muted, Hatoun.
Somebody has muted me, not me. Dr. Amaney, this was very, very interesting presentation, and the outcomes are very just unexpected. They are all unexpected. If you're talking about Kuwait, or you're talking about Tunis, or you're talking about Morocco, they are very strange, in all different directions. My question is regarding Kuwait. I want to understand this phenomenon that the most working women are in Kuwait, compared to these four countries that are much more active in women workforce, and even in terms of time, they are much earlier earlier on, since they have been in the market. So I was wondering, how is it that more Kuwaiti women are working? And another thing is, in all the other what is based on the fact that Kuwaiti women are the most percentage that is working. You have other questions that are related to this point, that are also very difficult to understand when it comes to believing in equality or in politics. Because again, believing in Kuwaiti women participating in politics is not something, is very sensitive issue, and always debated and problematic, and Kuwaiti women are fighting hard to just have one voice here and there. So it's just, if you could elaborate more, is there any problem with the data? Could there be a problem? The number, are you counting Kuwaiti women with nationality, excluding other women who are bidun or non-Kuwaitis who are working in Kuwait, or what exactly is happening here?
Thank, should I thank you so much. So these are, oh, we take another question, or so I can
I
jump.
think there are any other questions, or shall we?
Yeah, there is one question in the chat by Sumaya. Sumaya, do you want to ask yourself? Sumaya. Okay, so Sumaya is saying, she's asking if there is any, if she has any insights into women's social rights in the region. Okay.
Okay, so these are great, great, great questions. Thank you so much. I want to say also, like with Ayat and Rafali, I met them over 10 years ago, almost in the region, and to see, mashallah, that they're both at Sharjah and doing so well is just very, very heartwarming, and it's just a blessing. So it's so nice to see you all again, and Dr. Hatun and Zahia and everyone with us today. Uh, so let me start with the question I got from Ayat about the Jordanian women and 13%, and then the trends in the UAE. I would love to do this study in the UAE. So we should discuss it. You know, one of the challenges is that we don't do any work in the region without government approval. So because we're sampling randomly and we're asking questions about attitudes towards social, political, and economic, but if this is possible, I'd love to explore that further. But this point that Ayat raised, which is that in many of these countries, including Jordan, women's education at the university level is now outpacing that of men. And yet such a few percentage of women are in the labor force is a real challenge, right? And so you have to, again, going back to the basic economics 101, if families to send their girls and sons to college in a place like Jordan, it's not cheap. They are saving money, they are hustling, they are using life savings, they're selling their gold, they're looking at assets to send their kids to an education, and then women can't find jobs that are suitable and dignified and help them. So it is a challenge. And you can imagine after 20 years of this findings, people might say, why should I send my kids to college? I mean, this is what we have to worry about as a society, because oftentimes the Arab world is celebrated on the education front. The education story of the Arab world within 20, 30 years, from the 70s to 2000, it's just been a miracle. It's been amazing.
Indeed. Yes.
Yes. And we don't want to lose that momentum. So that's Ayat's point. Dr. Hatun, about Kuwait. So this is really, so we only interview Kuwaiti nationals. And our interpretation of this is that the most of the women are working in the public sector, either in government jobs or as teachers. But remember, the public sector in Kuwait is better than the private sector, and in many ways, like, you know, the benefits, the hours are short, the accommodating of childcare. For many women who work in the public sector, if I may say, it's a privilege to be working for the Kuwaiti public sector. And you work, what is it? I believe, I'm not sure now what the time span is. Is it 20? You work for 20 years in the public sector and you're eligible for retirement. And retirement is a benefit. So again, this is the state intervention that is creating an employment opportunities. I think most people in the public sector work day by 2 or 3 o'clock in Kuwait. So it's women can go home and still be with their kids. So it's a model that has worked in Kuwait. And I'll tell you, Dr. Hatton, I spent several, I did some, again, a while back, 15 years ago, I did a lot of interviews with women and men in Kuwait, not only about their attitudes towards gender equality, but also their attitudes towards democracy. And I was just surprised at the divergence between support for women's rights among Kuwaiti women versus a support for women's rights among Kuwait. There is a separation, and women, the civil society in Kuwait around women's issues is very, very prolific and active. The other advantage, and this probably might apply to the UAE, I don't know, I'm just like hypothesizing now, but if I may, is that in Kuwait, what I also noticed is, women own a lot of capital and resources in Kuwait. I think because of the traditions, women still possess their own financial means. A lot of the resources, I think about more than 50% of assets in banks are linked to women's assets in Kuwait. So it's not simply a wealth story. It's that they inherit resources from their families, and that gives you some autonomy within sort of these patriarchal domains sometimes. So that's why I think we need to explore. I think, and I don't know if that would apply to the UAE. I imagine we could extrapolate.
Indeed, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I will actually, we haven't got a lot of time left, but we will take two more questions. One from Jennifer Olmsted, and the next one is from Amira Traish. So Jennifer first and Amira second.
Hi, everybody.
And there is,
Hello.
and there is also
It's
Amira
great to see
Hassan.
so many familiar faces, and thank you so much, Dr. Amaney, for an excellent presentation. I wanted to follow up on actually what both of you and Dr. Ayat were talking about in terms of education.
Yeah.
It is true that as education has risen, labor force participation has not gone up as much as we might expect. But I think all of the statistical analysis that I've done and many other people have done has shown that the labor force participation rate of educated women is far higher than the labor force participation rate for non-educated women. So even though it's not 100%, for example, in Jordan, if you have very high levels of education, you're much more likely to be in the labor market. And in some countries, like in Syria, the difference is 15% versus 60%. So there's a huge gap. So I think that is, yes, it's not having the silver bullet effect, but it is definitely educated women are even more interested in working, and many, many more women are going into the labor market if they're educated. And then frankly, I think that's part of the story for the Gulf, because you've seen women's education levels rise incredibly rapidly. And as a result, I think it's also important to note that as the Gulf has solidified their public sector, which has given women lots of opportunities, the rest of the region has suffered from structural adjustment, and they have been forced to reduce their public sectors. So when you look at countries like Egypt, the public sector was a big employer of women, and now those jobs are really not good jobs anymore because the pay is very low, and it's just not as good as it was. So Raghi Assad's work shines light on that. So I think part of the story is the public sector. Unfortunately, in the Gulf, another part of the story is importing very cheap childcare providers from Asia. And so, yes, there's been a lot of access to childcare in the Gulf, which doesn't exist in some of the other countries in terms of that cost. And we need public childcare facilities rather than relying on privatized, very cheap imported labor. So I think thinking about what should the childcare look like is a really important question too. So those are, I really enjoyed this. I just wanted to add those. I think, I don't know, Dr. Amaney, if you've had a chance to break down the data by education, but I think it would be really interesting to see how much attitudes vary by education and also how much employment. I mean, we have labor force surveys that tell us that educated women are more likely to work, but it'd be interesting to see if your attitude surveys show differences by education. I also was curious, I was actually trying to see if other countries ask this question about whether women and men have equal rights to jobs, because we look at the backlash that's happening in the United States right now, and we see a huge rise in patriarchal attitudes and people saying that women shouldn't have the right to vote. We have people openly saying in the US that women should not have the right to vote. So there does seem to be a backlash. I don't think it's just in the Arab world. I think there's been a global backlash. It would be great to see some comparison with attitudes in other parts of the world and whether this uptick is related to global sort of rebounding of patriarchy and how much is local. So that's another thought that I had. Thank you.
Thank you so much. These are such important insights, Jennifer. Thank you for your contribution. Amira?
Yes.
Amira Traish?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Zahia. Thank
You're
you, Dr.
welcome.
Amaney, for being with us. You don't know how much this means to us. I've watched you on CNN. I have watched you on other news broadcasts, and it is really an honor to be here with you. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I know I'm one of the last to ask the questions, and I think Jennifer hit a lot of the topics that I had to bring up. But just to go back to one point that I just wanted to make, you talked about childcare, and I do think that this is one of the main components of women working. Now, it is interesting, when you did the study in Kuwait, we did look at, and I think Jennifer also brought this up, that they have childcare, we have domestic workers that will help, we have, helpers that come to the home. But also, have we looked at the extended family role in childcare? Now, I know in the Gulf, we still have a very large extended family and they're very close ties. Now, I'm noticing, I am also from, the Middle East and so on, so I can say this just from firsthand experience. We don't have the same ties as, well, my mother-in-law will watch the child, or my mother, or so on, anymore in some areas of the Middle East. We're here maybe with the aid of a domestic worker, it's a lot easier. So that may also play a role in it. I think that if you do your study, as Dr. Ayat has invited you, and I do hope you take her up on that, in the UAE, I think you will find a very close similarity to Kuwait for this reason. But I also feel one of the other reasons is the incentives from the government. Especially here in the UAE, there are huge incentives for women to join the workforce, for women to be educated, for women postgraduate, for entrepreneurs. The government here is very proactive with getting females in the workforce any means possible. I mean, really, with education, to work, to experience, to training, and so on. So I do feel that plays a role, but that only gets them into the workforce. The longevity then would be, how can they support that with the family? And I do feel that another study, Dr. Ayat, that you can think about with Dr. Amaney is looking at the external family role in it. We really need to look at this, because not a lot of people will leave their small children with a domestic worker on their own, but they're more comfortable with leaving them with a mother, a father, I shouldn't say father, but a mother or an aunt, a sister, or so on, with the help of somebody, kind of thing.
Yeah,
but anyway,
right.
Thank you again. Thank you. It was an honor that you came, and I hope to see you more in person.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amira. Dr. Amaney, over to you.
Before we, excuse me, let me just say something. There are a couple of questions in the chat as well. Could you look at them, Zahia? Amira Farhani. Amira Farhani, she's having.
Can you read them?
Yeah, she says, in addition to the fact that the youth are now more conservative than their ancestors, there is also, where did it go? There is also a factor of how social media, like Instagram and TikTok, are influencing women's opinions about being strong and independent. Many now are advertising for women who like to stay home and being taken care of by their partners. Have you had any data on current social media influence on women's work?
Yeah, that's a very important point. Yes.
So these are all great points, and Jennifer and Amira, and the question in the chat, Jennifer, if you all know, is not only my very, very good friend. We go back to AMU's over 25 years, if not 30 years, but she's also the expert on women, female work, labor participation in the Middle East and North Africa. So I think those questions are very valid. On education, Jennifer, indeed, we do see that women who are educated still have a higher probability of accessing jobs than if they weren't educated. But to your point, the correlation is not as strong as we'd like it to see. The, education doesn't automatically give you a job in the market, but when we break down also education across attitudes, indeed there is an education effect among men and women, more among women than on men when it comes to these more the patriarchal bundle, if you may. And yes, globally, what we're seeing is I think this reversal towards women's equality, but I also think in the United States, right? Let's just be very upfront. To get your child into a decent daycare on a monthly basis now, you're looking at upwards of $2,000 a month. So if the average job is $50,000, $60,000 and you're paying $2,000 for childcare, and transportation and gas and this and that, and then taxes are up, healthcare is up. The incentive. I worry about this K-shaped inflation or wealth index in the U.S. where the rich are getting richer and the less fortunate are not doing as well. The inequality is growing in societies where we see inequality. I'm worried that more women are going to opt to stay home because it's too expensive for them to work with the cost of daycare. And we're not Europe or the Gulf where daycare is subsidized in any meaningful way in our own country here in the United States. And so this relates to Amira's points about the importance of childcare and having extended family networks. And I do believe, yes, like I know several friends, right, who live in the Gulf where the nanny or the domestic helper is doing all the work, but there's a mother or a parental figure overseeing that allows women to go into the workplace and work. So again, and as more and more people have moved to urban centers, let's say in Jordan or Morocco, they've disconnected from their extended family. They're on their own in cities that are more expensive and daycare is expensive and the jobs are not paying. They're not keeping up with the cost of living. So this is an issue. And then social media. Social media, as a mother, social media. Yeah, that's all I'll say. Because the content on social media, in my opinion, I mean, and then again, not trying to be like old school or so out of whack with what's going on with the younger generation, but these algorithms are generating, can generate. I mean, and I really commend what Australia did, which is banning social media for youth under 16. Because it can reinforce not only patriarchal attitudes and stay-at-home sort of algorithms, but so much of the social media is about body image and about what you look like for a social media clip. Again, if you're stuck in that world, that image and body image, and that's the only thing that matters, it doesn't incentivize young women to go, to be educated, to compete for the best jobs, to find their own mark in the world. If being pretty and ending up married and you don't have to work and somebody supporting you is now being romanticized as in many of these algorithms, I do worry. And this is not just in the Middle East, it's in the US, it's in the world over right now. And it's a very dominant paradigm. So it is concerning.
Thank you very much indeed. It's such a rich discussion. We really enjoyed your lecture, Professor Amaney. I can't thank you enough. Words cannot express it. It's such an honor to have you on this platform. And you have really generated so much interest, and we will follow it up. And I hope we can host you in the University of Sharjah in the not too distant future. Thank you to all of you who have made this happen, who have attended this lecture, who have contributed with your questions and comments. And
Dr. Salhi, if you don't mind,
yes.
Just before leaving, could the Professor Amaney share again her last slide where there is the email?
Don't worry, my dear, don't worry. The slides will be posted. So don't worry.
Oh, great.
The lecture
Great,
is recorded, the slides will be posted, and the lecture. So we will follow on that. If you haven't given us already your email address, please do so, because we are going to contact everyone whose email address has been received by Ikram and
Bayan.
Yes, and Bayan, yes. So we are going to follow on that. Don't worry, nothing is wasted, nothing is lost. We are going to keep this going, this discussion going. Hopefully, we will share everything, and you will find also links to previous lectures and to forthcoming lectures when they happen. So on these words, I say thank you very much indeed, and I I will ask Hatun if she wants to say anything.
I would like to second what Professor Zahia said, Dr. Jamal. This was a very, very exciting lecture, and everybody was very excited about what they have learned, and the interaction was really high. And we look forward to see that your study, the progress of your study. This barometer is just amazing. Looking
Indeed.
at a study of 2 decades is just we feel that this is the way that researchers can be meaningful. It is when you look at them on a space of time. I would like to end our meeting here by announcing our next meeting. We hope that Dr. Amaney will also join us. We will be hosting Professor Yafa Shanik. She's going to speak about immigration, women and immigration, and we hope that the date will be 25th of February. If you could just mark the date, and we will send you all the details on your email. So thank you again, and good day, good evening, good morning to everyone. Assalam.
Thank you.
Thank
It
you.
will
Thank you
be, I
so
believe,
much.
it will be Ramadan by then.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
you. Ramadan
Yeah.
Kareem, and please put me on your
Ramadan
email
Mubarak
list.
Kareem.
Allah yakhlik. And I want to let you know, it's such an honor to be, the honor is mine to be with you. You made my day. I love having these conversations with people in the context and who are experts. So thank you for this opportunity to discuss the findings. And the Arab Barometer is also in Arabic on the website. All the data is for free. So www.arabbarometer.org. That we have an Arabic site. You can download the data. You can do trends on your own for whatever some of the countries, all the countries that we have. So please, thank you so much for having me.
Great.
Thank you so
Stay
much.
warm,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Amaney. Stay warm. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. You can see what's going
Thank you,
on here.
Dr.
I
Yes.
can see, yes, yes.
Yeah, enjoy.
Keep warm.
مع السلامة. Bye.
مع السلامة everyone.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.